Hey guys, today I want to take a look at some of the recent developments that have occurred for the 2022 midterms. There's some new candidates that are running that I think is really interesting, and I do think that these new developments will definitely benefit the Democratic Party. I think that they help further pad the Democrats' majority. Although it's a very narrow majority, I think they currently are definitely favored to keep their hold onto the Senate. The House is a completely different story, but on the Senate level, I think that right now, definitely the Senate Democrats should be very happy about where they're at this point for the 2022 midterms, which is in just a little bit over a year, and primaries will, occur in, just a little bit over a year. So the 2022 midterms are really going to start ramping up very, very soon. So before we get started, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not. The link to which is at the very top of the description below. So, of course, after the 2020 midterms here, not 2022 midterms, the 2020 Senate elections, the Senate was split 50-50. The Democrats, of course, won because they had Kamala Harris, the vice president. Democrats basically won all the seats that they were expected to win, but definitely Republicans were the upsetters. They won in Maine. Susan Collins defeated Sarah Gideon by 8.5%. I mean, Sarah Gideon still has $11 million left from contributions. I mean, she was a really good fundraiser because Susan Collins would be one of the, biggest wins for the Democrats. I mean, this was a state that on the presidential level, Joe Biden won by 9.1%, but Susan Collins in her fifth re-election campaign won re-election by 8.5%. In North Carolina, Tom Tillis, this is one of the important states that we'll be talking about today, but Tom Tillis was able to defeat Cal Cunningham, who had a scandal very late into his campaign, in October, that really did screw Cal Cunningham over. He was leading by over 10 points in the polls at one point, but that dropped to less than half that, towards the end. And with polls skewed against the Republican Party, it made it so that Tom Tillis was able to pretty narrowly win his re-election. You also have Michigan. Gary Peters only won by 1.7%. Definitely a lot closer than what a lot of people did expect. Georgia, you of course had John Ossoff and Raphael Warnock defeat David Perdue and Kelly Loeffler. And that was really it for all the surprises. You had Joni Ernst do better than expected against Teresa Greenfield, and Steve Daines defeating Steve Bullock by 10 points, of course. And then another surprising one is South Carolina. Lindsey Graham defeated Jamie Harrison, who fundraised the most amount of money for a Senate election ever at that point. They were surpassed by the two Georgia runoff elections, but Lindsey Graham still won by 10.3% against the best fundraiser in American history for a Senate election at that time. So it really just shows money doesn't win you races. And today, for the 2022 Senate elections, this is the 2022 map. You essentially have you have 34 races, so 34 races for 2022. Democrats start off with 36, Republicans with 30. So I'm going to fill in the solid seats first, and then I want to take a look at why these new developments will benefit the Democratic Party, in my opinion. I think definitely the Democrats will benefit from some of these new developments that have occurred in those races. So Republicans, they're going to win Missouri. There's really no way that they're not. Iowa, I mean, really, honestly, same thing. Ohio, I guess I'm not going to put in the solid column for now, but states like Missouri and Iowa, they're not going to go to a Democrat. There's really no chance at that. For Ohio, Sherrod Brown is a Democrat there, so I am going to leave that in the toss-up column just for right now. South Carolina, Alabama, same thing. So this gives both parties 45. Democrats are very heavily favored in Colorado. I'm actually going to do this a little bit more by margin. So Iowa and Missouri are definitely a little bit closer than these other states. So I'm actually going to put those two as likely for them. For Florida, I'm also going to put that as likely. I'm not going to be too strict about these margins, but that is essentially the map. Oh, of course, Democrats of New York. My bad there. But yeah, so basically, and they don't have New Hampshire. Okay, yeah, I messed this up a lot. But Republicans also do have Ohio. That is a little bit more red. So basically, it's 47-46. The Republicans actually have the advantage in terms of seats that I think they can definitely win. There's no way, in my opinion, that any Republican wins any of these blue seats, and any any Democrat wins any of these red seats. It is just really inconceivable to see a Democrat defeat Marco Rubio in Florida, or whoever the Republican nominee is in Ohio, Iowa, or Missouri. It's just really, really unlikely at this point. Just looking at the margins here on both the Senate and presidential levels, Trump plus 8.1, Trump plus 15.4, and Trump plus 8. So It's very unlikely here, but looking at these other races, these are all races that I think both parties can definitely win in, and these are the toss-up races for 2022. Now, for these toss-up races, I think that there are definitely some differences here. I do think that Nevada is definitely more favorable towards the Democrats. You have incumbent Catherine Cortez Masto, nothing too bad about her. I think she's definitely favored to win her re-election as an incumbent. Now she won her first term in 2016. I think she'll definitely do well. Mark Kelly in Arizona, very strong candidate for the state. He won the 2020 special election there, defeating Martha McSally in 2022, which is basically when he will have to be up for re-election. So he wins his first 6-year term. I think Mark Kelly will definitely do fine there. I think unless something major happens or he runs against someone that's really great in Arizona, I do think that he is definitely favored to win his re-election, although maybe not by the margin that he won it by in 2020. So that actually puts the Democrats up at 48. Now, these are the actual seats that I think really will be toss-ups. I think the seats in New Hampshire, I do favor the Democrats. They have a Democratic incumbent there. That's definitely true. And I'm going to categorize actually all of these states. I think Georgia right now benefits the Democrats as well, and even Pennsylvania, even though it's currently held by a Republican. And then these last two, I think, very, very slightly favor the Republican Party. Now, I'm going to go over why I think, these recent developments favor the Democrats. So the first one being here in the state of North Carolina. You have Pat McCrory, the former governor of North Carolina. He jumped into the race. I think that'll be a disaster for the GOP. So if you look at this, the betting odds right now, Pat McCrory, the former governor of the state, former Republican governor that is a Trump supporter, currently at 33 cents per share. Now, if you remember, Mark Walker used to be first. He used to be at over 50% in terms of his chances. Laura Trump still in second, now at 29. So he's actually increased a little bit here for Laura Trump. Laura Trump at her peak was at 44, but now she's up at 29. You have Pat McCrory at 30 cents per share. He just jumped in. It was speculated before, but he just jumped into the race. And then you have, of course, Mark Walker's chances have been at a downward trajectory over the last couple of weeks here. So I think that definitely Laura Trump will be the worst candidate. Pat McCrory, I think, would be the second worst. I do think Mark Walker would be the best candidate, but this is a Republican primary, so whoever the Republicans vote for isn't who independents and Democrats will consider voting for. So definitely Pat McCrory is, he was not a good governor. Really nobody liked him too much. That's why he lost in 2016. He won his first term in 2012. He defeated Walter Dalton. He won 54.6% of the vote in 2012, which was really a pretty strong margin for 2012. The presidential election there, Romney only won by 2%. Pat McCrory won here by over 11 percentage points. However, in 2016, this was when Donald Trump won North Carolina by 3.7% in 2016. Pat McCrory lost his race against Roy Cooper, who's the former governor of North Carolina. Pat McCrory lost against Roy Cooper by 0.2%. And then, of course, 2020, Roy Cooper was reelected in North Carolina. So, yeah, I think that Pat McCrory definitely was not too favorable in North Carolina, the former governor of the state. And, former governors, they don't typically do the best in Senate races. Sometimes they do, but really, I think that, how they were as a governor really does dictate it. Sometimes even that doesn't matter. You saw with Steve Daines, he still defeated Steve Bullock, who was a popular governor of Montana, but Montana was just too red at that point. So in Pat McCrory, in a state that is pretty much a purple state, it was won by Donald Trump by only 1.3% in 2020. I think definitely it's very worrying for Pat McCrory and the Republicans if he wins that nomination. Now, the 2016 Senate election. So, Richard Burr is the Republican incumbent. He is not running. That's why there is a Republican primary there. He won his third term in 2016 by around 6 points. He's been having pretty solid margins, not too large, but, around 6-10%. Pretty good, especially for a state like North Carolina. So, Republicans are losing Richard Burr in the Senate. I think it's a pretty smart choice for him. He won't have to face the possibility of losing in 2022, and the party has just become so fractured. He's a little bit more of a moderate, I guess, but he does, definitely vote with the majority of his party a lot of the time. Not too controversial because he doesn't really say that much about things, but Richard Burr definitely I think would be the best bet for the Republicans, but they're not going to have him. It's going to be Pat McCrory, looks like right now, which I think is definitely not something that the Republicans want, nor do they want Laura Trump. So if they want to go with someone that has an okay chance of winning, they should really just go with Mark Walker. That seems pretty unlikely at this point. For the Democratic Party, Jeff Jackson, 48 cents per share. I think he's a good candidate. He's a pretty good fundraiser. He raised over $500,000 within the first 2 days of him announcing his campaign. And second is Cherry Beasley. So Jeff Jackson, I think, is definitely a very good candidate for the state of North Carolina. He is currently a state senator from the state, and I think that he'll do all right in the race. I think if he runs against Pat McCrory, I think that definitely Jeff Jackson is favored in that race. So taking a look at this first development here, I mean, Democrats, I do think because of this, just because of this, I think they are favored in North Carolina. This might have been a Trump state, but, you saw Trump won North Carolina by 3.7%. Pat McCrory lost his re-election as an incumbent Republican by, by 0.2%, but still he did 4% worse, 4% worse than the Republican nominee for president. Now, the next state that I think is really, really worrying for the Republicans is Pennsylvania. This is another seat that they currently hold. It's currently being held by Pat Toomey. So Pat Toomey is currently the senator from Pennsylvania that's up for re-election. He holds this seat. He was reelected in 2016 when 48.8% of the vote. It was not the largest margin for him. He did win Erie County. He won most of the counties. He just lost, of course, Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. But 2016, even Pat Toomey, who is a pretty moderate Republican, he voted to convict Donald Trump in the Senate trial. So Pat Toomey, definitely one of the more moderate Republicans. That's a lot less of a Trump Republican. But now that he's retiring, he can basically do whatever he wants without having to worry about his re-election campaign in 2022 because he won't have one. He's said he's retired because of the partisan gridlock and how hard it's been to get things passed in the Senate recently. So that's why Pat Toomey is retiring. I think that's bad for the GOP. I think that he is the best candidate because this state is a Biden state. It went to Joe Biden by 1.2%. So he won 50%. He won the majority of the vote in Pennsylvania, Joe Biden. So I think that definitely that's going to be an issue for the GOP. And then 2018, there was a Senate election here again as well. In 2018, this was Bob Casey Jr. He, of course, defeated Lou Barletta. He won, again, by over 13 points. 2016, just look at 2016. This was probably worrying for him, honestly. 2016, Trump wins Pennsylvania, but in the 2018 midterms, Bob Casey wins re-election with 55% of the vote. 2012, he won 53%. 2006, he defeated Rick Santorum, who, he was a really big deal at one point. He came in second in the 2012 Republican nomination, lost to Mitt Romney, but Rick Santorum, the incumbent there, lost to Bob Casey by over 17 points. So definitely Bob Casey, is a pretty strong candidate. And, Democrats, they can win in Pennsylvania, definitely, by large margins. It really just depends on who it is. And I think that somebody with that possibility of winning those huge margins is who the Democrats are currently suspected of nominating. So currently the Democrats' favorite for the nomination is John Fetterman. John Fetterman, the lieutenant governor of the state of Pennsylvania, with 70% chance right now. That's really, really high. I think that he would be the best candidate right now for the Democratic Party. He's definitely a very, very strong candidate, very likable in Pennsylvania. And I do think that if he runs, he will have a very, very good time. I think that he will be pretty good in terms of whether or not he can win. That's AOC right there. There's been suspicions that she might run against Chuck Schumer. In 2022, the Senate Majority Leader. That's not going to go too well for her. She should consider running against Kirsten Gillibrand. I think that Kirsten Gillibrand would be a better candidate for her. But I think it's interesting that, she has a 15% share right now, that she does run in 2022. I think it would be really, really dumb for her. And I don't think that she can defeat the Senate Majority Leader. So 2022 here in Pennsylvania. So I got off topic there. But for John Fetterman, definitely he's the favorite. He has been the favorite for a very long time. I don't think he will lose. For the Republicans, it's currently Sean Parnell and Jeff Bartos that are at the very top. Sean Parnell is an author, conservative, but I think that definitely if you had Sean Parnell run against John Fetterman's definitely my bet. Definitely hands down. And I mean, this really shows the chances of these parties winning in 2022. Democrats 62, Republicans 39. Remember, this is a Republican-held seat. They currently, with Pat Toomey, hold this seat, and they're currently doing really, really well here. So definitely, I think Democrats have a very, very good chance. New Hampshire is another one of the close races. Democrats at 58, Republicans at 42 right there. And this one, the one in Pennsylvania, is the one that Donald Trump Jr. may run in. He only has a 12-cent share that he does run. But if you look at this, he's at, 4 in terms of his chances of winning. Really pretty disappointing. I don't think he's going to run or that he can win. Yeah, so definitely right now, Donald Trump Jr., really no chance. But for the Republicans, I think they're going to face a lot of, they're going to face an uphill climb in Pennsylvania, even though Pat Toomey is their incumbent. And so, yeah, I think that these two races really does make it very difficult for the Republican Party in 2022. I mean, look at the Cook Political Report. You have these Democratic leaning states here, and you have these Republican leaning states. The two toss-ups, North Carolina and Pennsylvania. I think Pennsylvania is more safe for the Democratic Party right now than Arizona and Georgia. I honestly think that John Fetterman has a bigger chance of winning an open seat here than Mark Kelly or Raphael Warnock has of winning their re-elections after the 2020 special election there. So I think that for Pennsylvania, I think that definitely John Fetterman will do very, very well in that race, which is why I'm going to put that in the lean categorization for the Democrats right now. New Hampshire is another race that they're favored in. The state of North Carolina, I think that with this, just with the fact that Jeff Jackson, good candidate definitely, against Pat McCrory, definitely not a good candidate. If it was just Republicans, he'd do great. But with incumbents and in a state that he was remembered as a really bad governor of, I think that it'll be tough for him to win in 2022. So that's gonna be another one that I'm gonna put in the Democrats' column right now, which means that really the only toss-up that Republicans are doing well in right now is Wisconsin, and that might not even be too safe for them if Ron Johnson chooses to retire in 2022, which is a very, very possible scenario and would definitely be devastating for them even further than it is right now. So even though it's going to be a red wave year, I think the wave will be greatly lower than typical because of COVID-19. And I think the Democrats are definitely doing pretty well there. And right now, in terms of the direction of the country, basically since the election of Barack Obama in 2008, because he was really popular, more Americans right now, Americans have not been happier about the way the country is going and the direction they're going in since the election of Barack Obama, and by a very small margin. Barack Obama, during his presidency at the very beginning, it was just a little bit more than right now in terms of how people viewed the direction that the country was going in. So really, the Democrats, with the government that they're currently leading, I think definitely they're doing something right. And so, yeah, that's why the Democrats currently, I think, are definitely favored in the 2022 midterms. So I think that the two, basically, things that happened recently in Pennsylvania and North Carolina, I think definitely make it so that these two races are very, very competitive, and in my opinion, a little bit better actually skewed towards the Democrats. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to like it down below if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you have not. Comment down below who you think will win the 2022 Senate races, and do you think that Pat McCrory would be a good candidate in 2022? Make sure to join my Discord server if you have not, linked which is at the very top of the description below. We have a pretty cool mock government on there. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.